The impossible encounter fleet commander Thane adjusted his collar as he stood on the bridge of the Imperial dreadnought Sovereign's Wrath. The massive warship was over 2 miles long and carried enough firepower to glass an entire planet. Around him, the bridge crew worked quietly at their stations, monitoring the vast emptiness of the Kepler sector. This was supposed to be a routine patrol mission along the contested borders of Imperial space. "Commander," called out Lieutenant Voss from the sensor station, "we have an unknown contact entering the system." Thane walked over to examine the readings on the tactical display. A single ship had dropped out of hyperspace near the edge of the system, moving slowly toward the inner planets. "What can you tell me about it?" Thane asked, studying the sensor data with interest. Unknown ships were rare in this part of the galaxy. Most species knew better than to wander into Imperial territory without permission. "It appears to be a human vessel, sir," Voss replied, adjusting his instruments. "The design matches their typical cargo hauler configuration. Length approximately 800 meters, basic fusion drive signature, and minimal energy output from weapon systems." Thane raised an eyebrow. Humans were still considered a minor species by Imperial standards. They had only achieved faster-than-light travel about 60 years ago, making them newcomers to galactic civilization. Most Imperial officers viewed them as ambitious but ultimately harmless traders and explorers. "What is a human cargo ship doing in restricted Imperial space?" Thane wondered aloud. He turned to his communications officer. "Open a channel to the human vessel." The main screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of the human ship. A woman in her 40s appeared, wearing a simple blue uniform. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and she had the calm expression of someone who had spent many years in space. Behind her, Thane could see a bridge that looked almost primitive compared to Imperial technology. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the merchant vessel Harmony's Dream," the woman said with a slight smile. "Can I help you with something?" Thane straightened his uniform and adopted his most authoritative tone. "Captain Chen, you are currently in violation of Imperial territorial boundaries. This system is restricted to authorized Imperial vessels. Only." Captain Chen looked genuinely surprised. "I apologize, Commander. Our navigation chart showed this as open space. We're just passing through on our way to the Centauri trade hub. We had no intention of causing any problems." "Ignorance of Imperial law is not an excuse," Thane replied sternly. "You will shut down your engines and prepare to be boarded for inspection. We need to examine your cargo and verify your flight plans." The human captain's expression remained calm and friendly. "I understand your position, Commander, but I'm afraid we can't comply with that request. We're carrying time-sensitive medical supplies to a colony that's dealing with a plague outbreak. Every hour counts." Thane felt his patience wearing thin. Humans always seemed to think they could negotiate their way out of Imperial regulations. "Captain Chen, you are not in a position to refuse Imperial commands. My ship carries enough firepower to reduce your vessel to scrap metal. I suggest you reconsider your response." "I appreciate your concern," Captain Chen replied, still maintaining her calm demeanor. "But we really do need to continue our mission. Perhaps we could arrange for the inspection at our destination? I'm sure we can work something out that satisfies everyone." Thane had heard enough. No minor species vessel was going to ignore Imperial authority in his patrol sector. He turned to his weapons officer. "Target their engines with a low-power disabling shot. Maybe that will help them understand the situation better." The weapons officer nodded and began charging the ship's forward pulse cannons. The Sovereign's Wrath carried weapons designed to punch through the armor of enemy battleships. Even a low-power shot should be more than enough to disable a simple human cargo hauler. "Fire," Thane commanded. A brilliant blue energy beam lanced out from the Imperial dreadnought, striking the human ship directly amidships where the main engines were located. Thane expected to see hull breaches, system failures, and the immediate surrender of the human crew. Instead, something impossible happened. The energy beam seemed to slow down as it approached the human vessel. The brilliant blue light began to change color, shifting from blue to green to gold. When it finally made contact with the ship's hull, the energy simply disappeared. The human ship continued on its course, completely undamaged. "What just happened?" Thane demanded, staring at the tactical display in confusion. "Sir, our energy beam appears to have been absorbed by the human vessel," reported the weapons officer, his voice filled with uncertainty. "All sensors confirm a direct hit, but there are no signs of damage to their ship." Lieutenant Voss looked up from his sensor station with a puzzled expression. "Commander, I'm reading some unusual energy signatures from the human vessel. Their hull is now emitting a low-level energy field that wasn't there before." Thane studied the sensor readings, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. The human ship's hull was indeed glowing with a soft, steady light. More disturbing was the fact that their ship's energy output had actually increased after absorbing the Imperial weapon strike. "Captain Chen," Thane said, reopening the communication channel, "what kind of defensive systems are you using?" The human captain looked slightly apologetic. "Oh, you mean the hull absorption? That's just standard human ship construction, Commander. We learned long ago that it's better to work with energy rather than fight against it. Your weapons are quite impressive, by the way. Thank you for the power boost." "Power boost?" Thane repeated, his voice rising. "Our weapons were designed to destroy enemy vessels, not provide them with additional energy." "Well, that's the difference between human and Imperial approaches, I suppose," Captain Chen replied with a shrug. "You build weapons to destroy things. We build ships that can use whatever energy comes their way. It's much more efficient." Thane turned to his tactical officer. "What's the status of their weapon systems?" "Still minimal, sir. I'm detecting what appear to be standard defensive pulse cannons. Nothing that could threaten an Imperial dreadnought." "Fire again," Thane ordered. "Full power this time. I want to see how much energy that hull can absorb." The Sovereign's Wrath unleashed its main battery, sending multiple high-energy plasma beams toward the human vessel. Each beam carried enough destructive force to vaporize a city block. The entire barrage struck the Harmony's Dream simultaneously. Once again, the energy beams slowed and changed color as they approached the human ship. This time, however, the absorption process was more dramatic. The human vessel began to glow, brighter and brighter until it looked like a small star floating in space. Waves of energy rippled across its hull in beautiful patterns of light. "Impossible," whispered Lieutenant Voss. "Their hull is not only absorbing our weapons fire, it's converting the energy into something else entirely." "Sir," called out the communications officer, "we're receiving another transmission from the human vessel." Captain Chen appeared on screen again, but now there was something different about her. Her eyes seemed to glow with the same soft light that surrounded her. "Ship." When she spoke, her voice carried a strange harmonic quality that hadn't been there before. "Commander Thane, I really wish you would stop shooting at us. While we appreciate the energy donations, we're starting to worry that continued weapons fire might cause some unintended side effects." "What kind of side effects?" Thane asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to hear the answer. "Well, our ship is designed to work in harmony with local space-time conditions," Captain Chen explained patiently. "When we absorb large amounts of energy, it sometimes affects the fabric of reality in the immediate area. We're already starting to see some minor dimensional fluctuations around your ship." Thane looked at his sensor readings and felt a chill run down his spine. The displays were showing impossible readings. According to his instruments, parts of his own ship were existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The laws of physics were being rewritten in real time. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "Human technology is supposed to be primitive. You shouldn't have the capability to manipulate space-time itself." "Oh, we don't manipulate anything," Captain Chen replied, with a gentle smile. "That would be quite rude. We simply ask reality if it would mind making a few adjustments to help everyone get along better. Reality is usually quite cooperative once you learn how to communicate properly." Thane felt the deck plates beneath his feet begin to vibrate in an unusual pattern. His ship's artificial gravity was fluctuating slightly, and several of his bridge officers were reporting strange readings from their stations. "Captain Chen, whatever you're doing, please stop it immediately. You're affecting my ship's systems." "We're not doing anything, Commander. Your ship is simply responding to the increased energy levels in local space. Don't worry, the effects should stabilize once we move to a safe distance." "You're not going anywhere," Thane declared, though his voice lacked its earlier confidence. I'm calling for reinforcements. The Imperial High Command needs to know about this immediately. Captain Chen's expression became more serious. I really wouldn't recommend that, Commander. Large fleets tend to create a lot of energy interference. If too many ships start shooting at us, we might not be able to control the dimensional effects. That could be dangerous for everyone involved. Despite the warning, Thane activated his ship's emergency beacon. Within minutes, 2 more Imperial dreadnoughts dropped out of hyperspace, their massive hulls bristling with weapons. The Imperial, Justice and the Stellar Dominion took up flanking positions around the human vessel. "This is Admiral Korath of the Imperial Justice," came a stern voice over the communication system. "Commander Thane, report your situation." "Admiral, we have encountered a human vessel using unknown defensive technology. Our weapons appear to be ineffective against their hull systems." Admiral Korath's image appeared on the main screen, showing a grizzled Imperial officer with decades of combat experience. "Commander, humans use primitive fusion drives and basic metal alloys. There is no human technology that could withstand Imperial firepower. With respect, Admiral, I suggest you examine the sensor readings. This situation is far more complex than our databases indicate." Admiral Korath studied the tactical display for several minutes, his expression growing more concerned as he reviewed the data. Finally, he looked up with a troubled expression. "All ships will target the human vessel and fire simultaneously. Maximum power. If their hull can absorb energy, we'll give them more energy than any ship can handle." "Admiral, wait," Thane began, but it was too late. 3 Imperial dreadnoughts opened fire at once, sending a devastating barrage of energy weapons toward the Harmony's Dream. The combined firepower was enough to crack a moon in half. The human ship absorbed it all. The energy beams struck the hull and vanished, causing the vessel to glow so brightly that the Imperial ship's screens automatically dimmed to protect their crew's eyesight. But something else was happening now. The space around the human ship began to twist and bend in ways that defied description. Stars in the distance appeared to move and shift position. The normally black vacuum of space took on colors that had no names. Reality itself seemed to be responding to the massive influx of energy being processed by the human vessel. "All ships, cease fire immediately," Admiral Korath commanded, but the damage was already done. The Harmony's Dream had become something beyond normal understanding. It existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, appearing as both a simple cargo hauler and something far greater. When Captain Chen appeared on screen again, she looked genuinely concerned for the first time. "Admiral Korath, you've forced us to absorb far more energy than we normally handle during peaceful operations. Our ship is now in an enhanced state that may be difficult to reverse. We're going to need to leave this area immediately before the dimensional effects spread to your vessels." "What do you mean by enhanced state?" the Admiral asked weakly. "We're currently existing in 17 different dimensions simultaneously," Captain Chen replied matter-of-factly. "If we stay here much longer, we might accidentally pull your ships into parallel universes. That would be very inconvenient for everyone involved." As if to demonstrate her point, the Imperial Justice suddenly began to flicker in and out of visible space. Admiral Korath watched in horror as parts of his own ship seemed to phase through reality. "We're leaving now," Captain Chen announced. "Thank you for the energy, and please be more careful in the future. Not all species are as patient as humans." The Harmony's Dream simply vanished. It didn't jump to hyperspace or use any recognizable form of faster-than-light travel. One moment it was there, glowing like a miniature sun, and the next moment empty space filled the area where it had been. The only evidence of its passage was a brief message that appeared on all 3 Imperial ships simultaneously, written in perfect Imperial standard, despite humans supposedly being unfamiliar with their language. "Safe travels, and remember that cooperation works better than conflict. The universe is big enough for everyone." Admiral Korath stared at the empty space, where the impossible human ship had been, realizing that everything the Empire thought it knew about humanity was completely wrong, and that realization terrified him more than any enemy fleet he had ever faced. The truth revealed. 3 days after the impossible encounter in the Kepler sector, the emergency session of the Imperial High Council was called to order. The massive chamber on the capital world of Imperius Prime buzzed with nervous energy as the Empire's most powerful leaders gathered to discuss a threat none of them understood. Grand Admiral Octavius stood at the center of the circular chamber, surrounded by holographic displays showing sensor data from the encounter. The readings made no sense according to any known laws of physics, but they had been verified by 3 separate Imperial vessels and their most advanced sensor arrays. Distinguished members of the High Council, Admiral Octavius began, his voice echoing through the chamber. We are facing a situation that challenges our fundamental understanding of galactic civilization and technology. Science Minister Dr. Phalanx, a tall alien with crystalline features, interrupted from his council seat. Admiral, with all due respect, these readings must be the result of sensor malfunctions or some form of human trickery. The species we're discussing achieved space flight barely 60 years ago. They simply cannot possess technology that surpasses our own. Minister Phalanx, the Admiral replied firmly. These readings were recorded by 3 different dreadnoughts using completely separate sensor systems. All equipment was tested and verified to be functioning normally. What we witnessed was not a malfunction or illusion. Intelligence Director Maleth activated her personal display, showing a galactic map marked with dozens of red indicators. The situation is more widespread than a single encounter. Our intelligence networks have been reporting unusual human activities across 16 different star systems over the past month. What kind of activities? Asked Defense Minister Corvin, leaning forward in his seat with obvious concern. Impossible activities, Director Maleth replied grimly. Human colonies established on planets that our surveys confirmed as completely uninhabitable. Trade agreements involving technology that shouldn't exist. Diplomatic missions where human representatives demonstrate capabilities that violate known scientific principles. She highlighted one of the red markers on the galactic map. This system contains a neutron star that emits radiation levels fatal to all known life forms. According to our latest reconnaissance, there is now a thriving human colony of over 300,000 people living comfortably on the 3rd planet. Science Minister Phalanx stood up abruptly. That is absolutely impossible. No known shielding. Technology can protect against neutron star radiation at that intensity. The entire planet should be a lifeless radioactive wasteland. That's what our agents thought too, Director Maleth continued. When they investigated, they discovered that the radiation levels had somehow been reduced to harmless background levels throughout the entire system. When questioned, the human colonists claimed they had simply asked the neutron star to be less aggressive, and it had agreed to cooperate. A murmur of disbelief rippled through the council chamber. Several members began speaking at once, their voices rising in agitation. Grand Admiral Octavius raised his hand for silence. There's more, Director Maleth continued. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected human vessels traveling at velocities that exceed our fastest ships, despite using what appear to be primitive fusion drives. When our patrol fleets attempt to intercept these vessels for routine inspections, strange things begin happening. Define strange, requested Admiral Octavius. Ship systems begin operating more efficiently than their design specifications allow. Hull armor becomes stronger without any modifications. Energy weapons increase in power output without explanation. Crew members report feeling unusually healthy and alert while in proximity to human vessels. Dr. Kesson, the Empire's leading xenobiologist, spoke up from his council seat. Director, are you suggesting that human presence somehow improves the performance of Imperial technology? I'm suggesting that we need to fundamentally reconsider our understanding of how humans interact with their environment, Director Maleth replied. Our intelligence operatives have been monitoring human communication networks, and we've discovered something disturbing. She activated an audio recording that filled the chamber with human voices speaking in their native language, with Imperial translation provided. Hey Marcus, how did the planetary engineering project go on Kepler 7? Asked a cheerful male voice. Pretty smoothly, David, replied another voice. We convinced the local ecosystem to be more cooperative. The deserts agreed to support grasslands, and the atmosphere decided to maintain better oxygen levels. Should have the whole planet garden ready by next spring. Excellent. Any trouble with the stellar radiation? Nah, we had a chat with the star about toning down the harmful emissions. It was very understanding once we explained the situation. The recording ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. Finally, Science Minister Valak spoke in a shaky voice. They are speaking about stellar bodies and planetary systems as if they were sentient beings capable of negotiation. That's exactly how they speak about everything, Director Maleth confirmed. Our linguistic analysis indicates that humans genuinely believe they can communicate with and influence fundamental forces of nature through cooperation rather than technological domination. Defense Minister Corvin stood up, his expression grim. Regardless of how they do it, the fact remains that humans are demonstrating capabilities that could threaten imperial security. I recommend immediate military action to contain this potential threat. With what ships? Admiral Octavius asked pointedly. If human vessels can absorb our weapons fire and convert it into useful energy, how do you propose we fight them? At that moment, an aide entered the chamber and whispered urgently in Director Maleth's ear. Her face went pale as she listened to the report. Council members, she announced, we have a developing situation. A human diplomatic vessel has just entered Imperial core space and is requesting an audience with the High Council. Absolutely not, Defense Minister Corvin declared. We cannot allow a potentially hostile alien vessel anywhere near the capital system. Sir, the aide interrupted nervously, the human ship is already here. It appeared in orbit around Imperius, prime without using any detectable form of faster-than-light travel. Our orbital defense platforms attempted to challenge the vessel, but their weapon systems shut down automatically when they tried to target it. The council chamber erupted in chaos as representatives shouted questions and demands. Grand Admiral, Octavius activated the chamber's main communication system. Patch me through to Orbital Defense Command. I want a full status report immediately. General Praxis appeared on the main display, his uniform disheveled and his expression confused. Admiral, we have a human vessel in high orbit that simply materialized without warning. When our defense platforms attempted to target it, all weapons, systems experienced what can only be described as a crisis of conscience. Explain that statement, General. Sir, the targeting computers began displaying error messages stating that they could not bring themselves to fire on such a peaceful vessel. Our technicians are baffled. The systems are functioning normally in all other respects, but they refuse to acknowledge the human ship as a legitimate target. What does the human vessel want? Admiral Octavius asked wearily. They're requesting permission to send a representative to address the High Council. They claim to have important information about improving relationships between our species. Grand Admiral Octavius looked around the council chamber at the concerned faces of the Empire's leadership. Send them down, but maintain maximum security protocols. 20 minutes later, the chamber doors opened to admit a single human figure. The representative was a woman in her 60s with silver hair and kind eyes. She wore a simple white outfit that seemed to glow with its own soft light. As she walked toward the center of the chamber, several council members noticed that the ambient lighting in the room became warmer and more pleasant. Honored members of the Imperial High Council, the woman said with a respectful bow, I am Ambassador Elena Vasquez representing the Human Cooperative Council. Thank you for agreeing to meet with me. Ambassador, Grand Admiral Octavius replied formally, your presence here has raised serious concerns about human intentions and capabilities. We need answers about the incidents involving your vessels and our ships. Ambassador Vasquez smiled gently. I understand your confusion, Admiral. The difference between human and imperial approaches to technology often leads to misunderstandings. May I explain? Please do, Science Minister Valak said, leaning forward with obvious curiosity despite his earlier skepticism. Most species in the galaxy develop technology by imposing their will upon the universe, Ambassador Vasquez began. You build weapons that force energy to behave destructively. You create engines that compel space-time to bend to your needs. You construct hulls that resist external forces through brute strength. She gestured toward the holographic displays still showing sensor data from the Kepler encounter. Humans learned long ago that cooperation is more effective than domination. Instead of forcing the universe to obey us, we learn to work with the fundamental forces of reality. How is such cooperation possible? Dr. Kesson asked. The laws of physics are not sentient beings capable of negotiation, aren't they? Ambassador Vasquez replied with a knowing smile. Quantum mechanics tells us that observation affects reality. Consciousness appears to play a role in determining how the universe behaves. Humans simply took this principle to its logical conclusion. She activated a small device that projected a three-dimensional model of atomic structure into the center of the chamber. When we build our ships, we don't just assemble materials. We invite the atoms to work together harmoniously. We ask the energy fields to cooperate rather than conflict. We suggest to space-time that gentle bending would be preferable to violent distortion. And the universe actually responds to these requests? Director Maleth asked incredulously. The universe is incredibly cooperative once you learn how to communicate properly, Ambassador Vasquez confirmed. Think about it. Everything in existence is made of the same fundamental particles and energy. At the deepest level, we're all connected. Humans simply learn to have polite conversations with reality instead of trying to dominate it. Defense Minister Corvin stood up aggressively. If humans possess such incredible capabilities, why haven't you conquered the galaxy? Why are you still trading peacefully with other species instead of imposing your will? Ambassador Vasquez looked genuinely puzzled by the question. Why would we want to conquer anyone? Conquest requires conflict, and conflict is inefficient. It's much easier to cooperate with other species and help everyone achieve their goals together. But surely you must want to expand human territory and influence, Minister Corvin pressed. Minister, the universe is infinite and filled with wonderful possibilities. There's more than enough space and resources for everyone. Human philosophy has always been based on abundance rather than scarcity. We prefer to help create prosperity for all, rather than hoarding it for ourselves. Grand Admiral Octavius studied the human ambassador carefully. Ambassador Vasquez, your species' capabilities could be seen as a threat to imperial security and stability. Admiral, I understand your concerns, but I assure you that humans have no hostile intentions toward the imperial government or any other galactic civilization. We're here to offer friendship, cooperation, and assistance if desired. She activated another device that filled the chamber with a gentle, harmonious tone. As the sound resonated through the room, several council members noticed that their stress levels decreased and their thinking became clearer. This is what human technology really does, Ambassador Vasquez explained. It creates harmony instead of discord. It builds bridges instead of walls. It heals instead of harming. Your weapons couldn't damage our ships because our ships are designed to transform destructive energy into beneficial energy. Science Minister Valix was staring at his personal scanner in amazement. The ambient energy levels in this chamber have improved by 30% since the ambassador arrived. The air quality is better, the electromagnetic fields are more stable, and even the artificial gravity feels more natural. That's just the normal effect of human presence in any environment, Ambassador Vasquez said modestly. We've learned to exist in harmony with our surroundings, so our surroundings tend to become more harmonious. Grand Admiral Octavius made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. Ambassador, the Imperial High Council would like to learn more about human philosophy and technology. Would your people be willing to share this knowledge? Admiral, humans have always believed that knowledge should be freely shared. We would be honored to help the Imperial civilization develop more cooperative relationships with the universe. However, there is one requirement. What requirement? Defense Minister Corvin asked suspiciously. The technology only works if it's used with genuine intentions of cooperation and harmony. Any attempt to use human principles for domination or conquest will simply fail. The universe has a way of knowing the difference between sincere cooperation and selfish manipulation. Ambassador Vasquez stood up and bowed respectfully to the council. I'll return to my ship now and contact our cooperative council. If you're truly interested in learning the human way, we can begin cultural and technological exchanges immediately. As she walked toward the chamber exit, she paused and looked back at the assembled council members. Oh, and Admiral Octavius, please tell your fleet commanders that human ships are always happy to share energy if asked politely. Shooting at us is unnecessary and inefficient. After the ambassador left, the council chamber remained silent for several minutes. Finally, Grand Admiral Octavius spoke. Council members, I believe we are witnessing the emergence of a civilization that has transcended our traditional understanding of power and technology. The question we must answer is whether the Empire is ready to learn from them. Science Minister Valix was studying his readings with wonder. Admiral, if humans can truly teach us to work with the universe instead of fighting against it, the possibilities are limitless. We could have unlimited clean energy, perfect planetary environments, and technology that heals rather than harms. Or, Defense Minister Corvin said grimly, we could be witnessing the end of imperial dominance in the galaxy. If every species learns to cooperate with reality the way humans do, what need will there be for imperial authority? Grand Admiral Octavius looked out through the chamber's great windows at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, humanity was quietly revolutionizing the galaxy through kindness and cooperation, rather than conquest and control. Perhaps, he said thoughtfully, it's time for the Empire to evolve as well. The age of domination may be ending, but the age of cooperation is just beginning. The decision to work with humanity rather than against them would transform the Galactic Empire into something unprecedented, a civilization that ruled through wisdom and cooperation rather than fear and force. And it all began with a single, human cargo ship that refused to be destroyed, choosing instead to turn weapons into gifts and enemies into friends. The universe, it seemed, had been waiting for someone to finally ask nicely,